Here you go. In this video, I'm just going to explain the requirements of opening bank account in Japan and things to prepare when you create a bank account in a Japanese financial institution. So this video is for those non-Japanese who live in Japan already or who start living in Japan. So it goes without saying that having a bank account is indispensable to make a payment for your utility costs and the rent for your apartment and receive a salary from the company. So this is one of the most important basic infrastructures to support your living in Japan. And this is a top priority task that you must finish after you find your place to live in Japan. So firstly, you're going to have to make sure if you're resident or non-resident in Japan. Originally, resident or non-resident is a legal distinction of non-Japanese resident living in Japan based on the duration of stay from the viewpoint of taxation, such as resident tax. So a resident indicates a non-Japanese person who will keep staying in Japan for equal to or more than 1 year. A non-resident indicates a non-Japanese person who will keep staying in Japan for less than 1 year. However, Japanese financial institutions have its own unique standard of distinction of a resident or non-resident. In the Japanese financial institutions, a resident indicates non-Japanese person who will keep staying in Japan for equal to or more than 6 months. And non-resident indicates non-Japanese person who will keep staying in Japan for over 3 months and less than 6 months. So the distinction of if you are resident or non-resident is very important indicator when you create a bank account at a Japanese financial institutions, because the type of bank account you can create will differ depending on whether you are resident or non-resident in Japan. So however, recently the dividing line between resident or non-resident to distinct non-Japanese residents in Japan is obscure among Japanese financial institutions. So Yujo Bank and UFJ Bank don't set this, distinction ostensibly. So if you want to open a bank account in Japan, you should be granted permission to stay in Japan for at least 6 months. So if you only stay for 3 months, I think probably no bank in Japan will accept your offer to create savings account in Japan. So you're going to have to check your visa status beforehand, and you're going to have to know how long you're allowed to stay in Japan for, and to make sure which type of distinction you correspond to, resident or non-resident, and distinction standard of Japanese financial institution. So if you come to Japan to work for a Japanese company for a certain period and want to open a bank account in Japan, you're going to have to make sure if you can keep staying in Japan for equal to or more than 6 months, as I said, because you're going to open resident type bank accounts in a Japanese financial institution. So resident type bank account has no functional restriction in contrast to the non-resident type bank accounts. Prior to opening bank account in Japan, you have to prepare residence card and the certificate of residence beforehand. So you are required to submit these 2 documents when you create a bank account in a Japanese financial institutions. So I think you're given a residence card that shows your visa status at the airport where you arrive. And this is your ID that proves that you are a non-Japanese living in Japan. So the problem is how you can get the certificate of residence in Japan. So when you decide where you're going to stay, where you're going to live in Japan, you have to report where you live to a municipal office near your house, near your apartment. And you need to have your living address registered on the resident database of a municipality, and you need to have the certificate of residence issued by a municipal office. So this is what you have to do. So if you're going to stay in Japan for over 3 months and less than 6 months, you are given residence card and the certificate of residence, but you are treated as non-residents. You can create a bank account, but the type of bank account you can create has functional restriction compared to the one for residents, which I introduced the case 1. So for example, this type of bank account is generally restricted from using ATM, remitting your money overseas, and giving you a credit card and direct debit, and also a number of bank branches that let you deposit or withdraw your money will be limited. So in short, what you can do with non-resident bank account is just withdrawing and depositing money at a bank counter every time in a designated bank branch. So actually, if you are non-resident, there is no point in using and creating a Japanese bank account realistically. So speaking of visa status that allows you to stay in Japan for less than or equal to 3 months, that is mostly a sightseeing visa. In the current situation, I believe there is no one coming to Japan for sightseeing due to the restriction from visa issuance by the Japanese government. And basically, non-Japanese coming to Japan for the purpose of sightseeing are not given a residence card and the certificate of residence. So you are restricted from creating a bank account in Japan from the viewpoint of avoidance of money laundering. So generally, you need to prepare 4 things when you create a bank account in Japan. The first one is ID documents, and second one is document that disclose your living address in Japan, and third one is inkan, which is like a seal impression, that is a signature stamp instead of your written signature, and fourth is your phone number. So for ID documents, you're required to submit your passport and residence card, and some banks require you to submit the certificate of employment that proves you are working in Japan. And for the document that disclose your living address in Japan, you are required to submit a copy of the certificate of residence or utility expenses bill that has the information of your living address. So for inkan, you have to prepare inkan, which is seal impression with your name. So you have to order your inkan with your name to an inkan maker shop in a department store or somewhere. And there are some banks that only accept your written signature, but such banks are really minority. So you'd better making inkan if you will keep staying in Japan for so long. So these are general requirements and things to prepare prior to opening a bank account in a Japanese financial institution. So documents to prepare and requirements to be fulfilled are slightly different depending on the bank where you would open a bank account. So, but if you satisfy the requirements and requires documents that I introduced here, it'll be okay. You surely can create a bank account in a Japanese financial institution.